Okay, welcome to episode 2 of Let's Paint. This time it's going to be a White Scar Space Marine. This unfortunately turns out to be a train wreck of sorts, but bear with me as I plow through it. I started out by base coating this Space Marine in a matte white spray paint. Unfortunately, I should have used a gloss white, but I'll explain about that later. Okay. I'm going to be using Citadel's Blood Red, Reaper's Faded Black, and going back to Citadel with Sunburst Yellow. Of course, I have my bolt gun metal. Now I know for some people it's a little difficult to get a hold of, so if you don't have that, chainmail will work in a pinch. I will need plenty of Skull White to fix all the mistakes I make. Now, I'm going to be using Badab Black, but if you don't have Badab Black, then Azerman Blue will work as well. So, let's go ahead and get on with the painting. I'm going to start out by using Reaper's Faded Black. Now, right now, I switch back and forth between using the black and the bolt gun, just because I'm painting different things at different stages. Right now, I'm using the black to paint all of the joints on the Space Marine that I can reach, so that would be the backs of the knees, the elbows, anything that would move, I try to paint black. Now, as anyone who has painted a white Space Marine before knows, if anything gets on white, it becomes extremely noticeable. From black to yellow, red, or gray, anything that isn't white that's on white will show up like a sore thumb. So that's why I have the Skull White, to correct all of the many mistakes I knew I would make. I unfortunately didn't know that I was going to need as much as I did, but you'll see why a little bit later on. Okay, so I've got the joints painted. Now I'm going to go ahead and break out the bolt gun metal and paint the bolt gun. Now, I wanted to be a little liberal with this bolt gun metal, be able to slop around a little bit on the gun, so I put off painting the Samaric part of the bolt gun until a little bit later. So there we go, I've got my bolt gun metal bolt gun, and I'm going to go ahead and paint the black Samaric case on it. So I've gone ahead and done that, and now I'm going to go ahead and paint the Aquila on the bolt gun as well as on the chest in our yellow. Now, one of the technical difficulties of this video is I unfortunately had my camera set up incorrectly, so most of the action takes place on the right hand side of the screen if it's not completely off, so I apologize for that. Now I go back with my bolt gun metal and I paint the vents on the backpack. After that, I'm going to be using my blood red to paint the shoulders and other areas. Now, if anyone who has painted with red can tell you, red is extremely difficult to paint with. It's really thin and transparent, and you always need at least 2 coats to try and cover something, if not more. This can be avoided by putting down a foundation paint like Mechrite Red, but for some reason that I can't fathom, I didn't use it. So here we go, we have a basic White Scar with the red trimmed shoulders. Now, I found that no 2 White Scars have armor that looks exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and paint on a few extra red details. Right here I'm putting on a red knee pad. And one of the mistakes I made is I accidentally got a little bit of black paint onto the other knee pad. So honestly I should have done the other one red, but for some reason I decided to just correct the mistake with some white paint. I also paint one of the elbows with red. I wanted to paint this other one here as well, but it would have been too difficult to reach all of it, so I left it white. So I've got one red knee, one red elbow. And then I went and I freehanded some lightning bolt details on this leg. And believe me, freehanding details with a transparent paint is going to be a major pain in the butt to anyone who tries it. So now I'm going to take my fine detail brush and I want to do a pin wash on this entire thing with Bad Black. Any recessed area, any panel line, anything that I think needs it. Now I thought my camera was running, which is why I started to paint the backpack with Bad Black. So that's why that's already done. So anyhows, here is why I needed to have a gloss white undercoat instead of a matte white. If a paint is gloss, any other paint that you put over it doesn't really like to stick to it, it slides off, and so I could have just done all the recessed lines very, very easily if I'd done gloss. Now with matte, paint loves to stick to other matte paint, and so a wash is no exception. So as you can see, it looks pretty messy. If I'd done a gloss paint job, it would have been extremely easy to clean up. Just like a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip would have done the job in a quarter of the time it took me to correct all the mistakes I made with Skull White. But anyhows, here's the Space Marine with Bad Black before I go and correct any mistakes with Skull White. And as you can see, and I didn't do a very neat job of it. So you can see the backpack there, the shoulder, the helmet, that other shoulder, the legs. Pretty much everywhere needs to be cleaned up. And that will take me probably about 45 minutes off camera, which I will spare you from. So now it's done, and I'm going to go ahead and do some basing. The world that the White Scars come from is really filled with lots of wide grassy plains. I wanted to have mud and grass, so I painted the base with brown paint, so the black plastic wouldn't show through when I put the sand on. So I watered down some glue, I put it in the sand, clean off the rim there, and I decided that I didn't want to risk having any sand fall off, so I go ahead and put some more watered down glue over that. I just add a bit more water to it, make it really thin, and then put it over the sand there. So I'm just going to go ahead and wait for that to dry, and then go on to the next step. So I decided that it was a little too light, so I'm going to darken it up a little bit with some Devlin mud, just to make it look a little more muddy. So there's that. Now I just have to wait for the Devlin mud to dry, and I can go on to the grass. Now I went ahead and I painted some reflective glares on his eye lenses in blazing orange and the golden yellow, but unfortunately you can say it either looks menacing or goofy. I can't decide which. I think it looks rather goofy, so thankfully this is just a single figure and not a template for an army. But now I'm gonna move on to the grass. So a few spots of glue, and then I'll go ahead and put on my static grass with a pair of tweezers. ahead and knock off any extra. And now we are almost done. I just need to clean up the rim with some Chaos Black, which I'm going to go ahead and do right now. That is how I painted a White Scars Space Marine. I hope that any of you out there who have aspirations of making a White Scars army learns from my mistakes and doesn't repeat them. Now, just to have a little extra flourish, I went ahead and put on a White Scars decal there on his shoulder. Remember my mistakes, don't repeat them. And that's all I have for you this time. I'm signing out. And to all you out there, happy wargaming.